All right, y'all. Wildcard week really be slapping. They even got games on Sunday, believe it or not. It's ridiculous. But regardless, it starts out with a bang, honestly, which is really kind of alarming if you're a Bills fan, because going into this year, if you would have said you're going into Jacksonville, they'd be like, oh, yeah, that's fine. They should be very scared. And I say that as somebody that's not high on the Jaguars. I also am, as you could see, probably not too high on the Bills, but I think a lot of this is also just the matchup is really poor for the Bills, I feel. So, what gets them in trouble is the Jaguars have a lot of volatility with Trevor Lawrence. You never know if he's going to miss every receiver ever by just not being accurate somehow in year 6 or 5, whatever. And he could also just, throw a strike any given play that, he and two other quarterbacks in the league could throw. So that inherently makes things nerve wracking if you're the better team like the Bills could be. And beyond that, though, there's a lot of things to like for the Jags. What do we know about the Bills? Their defense sucks, particularly their run game. It is so horrendous. It's talked about a lot, but still somehow not enough. It is egregiously bad. It is disgusting. Sean McDermott should be embarrassed, as should Brandon Beane. This is a disgrace to football. How bad it is, it's like one of the biggest weaknesses we've seen in a playoff team in recent memory. So, the Jaguars, they can run that ball. They sometimes do it maybe more than they should, but they can do it with some real success. And this is just a total mismatch. The Bills, I think, are going to have to play in a way that they don't want to, with actually regarding the run. And I think they're going to have to play pretty conventional, like cover three, one high type of look defenses for a ton of the game. They can't really do anything out of too high, I feel, because their line's going to get beat up by the Jags line. Even though the Jags line's not like elite, it's good. So good on really bad in the run game could really be dire for the Bills. And, that would then play into the offense as well, obviously, where, you know, Allen gets one or two possessions knocked off. So if he throws, a pass that gets dropped by a receiver in a key third down, or he tries fitting in a ball, being too aggressive, and it gets intercepted, that becomes magnified a whole bunch by the limited possessions. So I'm nervous if I'm the Bills here. And I think they can do it if they do just sell out to stop the run, because at that point, you're obviously putting your pass defense in a disadvantage. You can't have all of the nice things all at once, unfortunately, but the the upside of that is so much higher than just saying we're going to allow 4 to 99 yards on every run, which is what's going to happen if you don't cater to stopping it. Yes, you also do allow yourself then to get beat in a pretty ugly way where, you know, Trey White loses his one on one against Brian Thomas, say, and then, that happens enough times and you just really gotta get on your game and air it out perfectly to match pace with the Jags actually playing a regular defense because they can. That, becomes tough. But I will not ever say go in and just let the other team get guaranteed first downs through the ground. And I think that's the choice they're left with. So it's dangerous. You don't want to have to sell out to stop it, especially too because the defense sucks in general for Buffalo. Like their pass defense is fine. I think it's a little inflated actually, just because how bad the run game is. Where it's like, why beat them through the air when we can, guaranteed beat them through the ground? So I think it's a fine pass defense. They don't really have a weakness. They don't have like a lockdown corner, but there's no one that's really easy to target now that White's figured it out. So that's okay, but their linebackers are really bad. Milano has not returned to form whatsoever, basically, and Bernard is terrible at football, contrary to what you might hear from the more casual people. He just runs really fast with no real pursuit or plan in place. He kind of covers an area sometimes in coverage. He's just doing his own thing. He's kind of like the Devin White of the Bills, I feel. So they can really be targeted. Brenton Strange, he could really have some success here because you know you can only stop so many things when you're so limited like the Bills are. So if they do try to stop the run, or even if they don't really, the linebacker's going to have to really be on their game to stop Strange, and I think they're going to get sucked down by having a lot of run responsibility. So Strange can get, over the top. If not, just playing him conventionally. I like Strange over either of these linebackers by far. So this is a bit of a pickle for sure. I think they're going to have to sell out to stop the run. And at that point, I think they can do a good job of that and only allow Jacksonville to say have like 21 to 24 points. But if they let them do whatever they want, maybe they'd get 24 points the same, but it's just a dominant 24 they score on all of their possessions type of deal. So that's alarming to begin with. But then also the matchup for the Jags defense, not too bad. With the Bills, you have to accommodate the run, obviously. Josh Allen liable to, even if it's a pass play, just run it for 80 yards, breaking 18 tackles along the way, dragging 3 guys with him. So, that is always a thing. But you limit that a whole lot, just their overall ground game and Allen in particular, by having the best linebacker do in the league. Devin Lloyd, about as good as it gets. I would probably take Fred Warner over him if he were healthy, but notice I'm saying probably. That's how good Lloyd is. I think so heavily of Warner. Lloyd is incredible. He is the exact thing you wanted when you drafted a pretty old linebacker in the first. He is just premier. He stops the run basically by himself sometimes. He can be in coverage. He can blitz some. So he is just dominant at the linebacker position. One of the linebackers that actually does make a difference. And Foyesade Oluokun, that is a great number 2. Any team would be lucky to have him as a number 2 linebacker. No issues in his game whatsoever. You want somebody to cover somebody in space with speed as a linebacker, he can do that. You want somebody to, stuff a run by himself, he can do that as well. So he is a premier number 2. I think he could be a number 1 on plenty of teams. So that's a good matchup for the Jags there to go against Kincaid, who still kind of on a snap restriction basically, where he plays like a third of the game a lot of the times. So that is a bit rough. They can negate the best piece for this Bills passing attack, and the second best, Shakir, he's going to be limited as well because he does all of his work basically, or not all of his work, but a good chunk of his work in the slot, and that's going to be minimized by Jones being a good corner, and again, the aforementioned linebackers. There's not really a super winning matchup for them here. That Newsome also can be in the slot. Newsome could be targeted, I guess, so that is one thing, but if they keep Jones on Shakir as they should, that becomes, anybody's guess, which, if you notice, we were talking in the Jags game, there's a million things to like for the Jags game, or team. I didn't even get into Myers, who can dominate those linebackers as well. Brian Thomas, if he does catch the ball for once, that's something as well. Washington has been good. So, basically anything, they can beat him to the ground or the air. And, with the Bills, though, I'm like, how do we get, Shakir a favorable matchup? How do we get Kincaid somehow not having these linebackers draped all over him at all times? That's tough. And, I do think Allen just clears Lawrence by an egregious amount. Lawrence has been at his best form this year, which is to say he's about top 10, but that's his best. Allen had like kind of a down year by his standards, and he was arguably, still the best quarterback. So there is so much stress being put on Allen here that it is honestly ridiculous, and I wouldn't fault you for saying that you're just relying on too much of a top like 5% game from Allen, which you never want to bank on that because though the offensive line should be able to neutralize Hines Allen pretty well, Dawkins good enough to be left on him one on one a good amount. Spencer Brown also, you figure, but you know that's going to make things difficult because if they do one on one, he's going to win some of them. I'm sorry to say, it's not Trent Williams in his prime type of deal where you just put him on any edge rusher and it's done. They're not that level, and also Hines Allen is good enough to where you don't expect that from really anybody to begin with. So that then means you're probably gonna have to double team him a good amount, which opens up for everybody else. Where Trayvon Walker, he's okay. Eric Armstead, he's pretty darn good though. That kind of opens things up for everybody else to make plays. So even if they don't have the greatest line aside from Allen, it it's going to look better because everybody else is going to be focusing on Hines Allen. It'll be a very big game for Josh Allen either way. Maybe they put the Hines in front of it. Maybe it's just Josh Allen regular. It's going to be a key pivot point there because this Jags defense, it really does run through their linebackers. Hines Allen, the coverage unit, again, it's not bad. I think it is pretty good. It's benefited a lot from turnover luck and playing quarterbacks that do turn over the ball, so it's a little bit misleading what their success has been, but it's a good defense, and having a good defense against, a great matchup with your offense, that's a pretty good situation. So this is a game where I totally don't fault you for going either way on it. I think if you want to say that Josh Allen going complete Superman hero type of outcome is too much for you to bet on, I think that's totally fair. I am of the belief that the Jags are a little bit more stated than they should be. I think they're a good team, but I think this is a team that is definitely a wild card team, whereas the Bills, their team is pretty bad aside from Allen, to be completely honest, but that just really that makes you such a tough sell for me in a wild card matchup particularly. So I'm going with the Bills. If I really had to put a percentage on it, I would be like 52% Bills, a little more over, just 51-49, but you catch me on tomorrow, the next day, what have you, and you ask me this again, I might be saying I'm 52% the Jags. It is very well within the swing of that. It is going to be so tough for Allen, even if the defense isn't the greatest of all time. It's a good defense, and he's going to be challenged for that, whereas Lawrence should have about as easy of a day as you can imagine. Even with the pass defense being pretty good for Buffalo, I think they're just going to have to play so one hand tied behind their back that it's going to make things super easy for Lawrence. And if they don't, shame on the Bills. They're just going to get 200 yards on the ground and get 5 yards a pop on it too. So I take the Bills here, but again, I don't blame you if you don't. Those are my thoughts on the game. Be sure to let me know what yours are in the comment section. Also, be sure to like and subscribe for more content. I'll be doing NFL playoffs, college playoffs, and NBA shortly.